The Jeff Younger Show is on. Dedicated to my sons, James and Jude.
The surveillance state isn't coming. It's here, my friends. And you don't even know how to communicate under it. Last episode, I showed you why you can't read between the lines anymore. And today we're going to flip it. I'm going to teach you how to write between the lines because it's easier to learn how to write between the lines before you learn how to speak between the lines. I want you to learn how to write what you actually think when saying it directly would actually destroy you. These techniques kept philosophy alive through 2,000 years of persecution, but they only work if you master them before you need them, because it's too late once your head's on the chopping block and the axe is coming down. Yeah, I know. You're probably going to scroll past this. I know you are, man. It's not because you don't like this content. You know, you do. You like this content. But, I mean, that's why you're still here. You wouldn't have made it here if you didn't like it. But you're going to scroll past because you're going to tell yourself that you'll subscribe later. Next video, I'll do it next time. And when you have time and when you remember, yeah, man, but you're not going to remember. I've been watching men do this for 35 years. Not just with YouTube subscriptions, but just with everything. Job applications, hard conversations, good workouts. It's always later. It's always tomorrow. Here's the truth, man. Later's where good intentions go to die. It's the part of the pasture where all the bullshit is. You don't want to go there. You need to cut through the bullshit. Take action. Do it now, right? All I'm saying is it's 2 clicks, man. It's like 2 seconds. Hit subscribe and then click the bell. You can do that right now. Or you can just prove me right about you, man. Your call. So what's the fundamental challenge for this way of speaking and writing? First of all, you're solving a kind of impossible problem. You need to speak to 2 audiences at once who want 2 opposite things. Your allies need to understand you, and your enemies need to miss the point. The surface is going to satisfy the senses, while the depth will communicate truths to those who can handle it and know how to find it. Most people fail here because they're either so subtle, nobody gets it, not even allies, or so obvious, everyone gets it, including enemies who destroy them. And this is especially a problem today when most people are morons and can't read esoterically. They can't even read double intentions. They barely get sarcasm or irony in writing. So you're dealing with an age of moronic intellect when it comes to reading. This is one of the worst ages for reading. More people can read, but most people can't read well, right? So to find the sweet spot, it's super narrow. Your surface layer has to be completely coherent and defensible on its own terms. And only beneath that layer do you hide the truth. And you do it in ways that require a lot of effort to find. Effort that hostile readers won't make because they're satisfied with what they see on the surface. And this is one of the things, big key. The surface level should satisfy your enemies. They should go, yeah, that meets my expectations of what I think this guy would say. It's not surprising. Do our enemies communicate this way? You damn right they do. They call it messaging, framing, optics. Our enemies, what do you think all this stuff is? Like, for example, when they try to say somebody said something harsh to somebody and that's violence. You see, that's code word. They don't really believe it's violence. What they mean is we need to do violence to that person. It's code. Do you see? For their side, they know how to decode that. And you're sitting over here going, well, I'm going to do a demonstrative proof that words are not violence, and I'm going to shun you, and I'm going to make fun of you for even believing such a stupid thing. And they're just over there going, yeah, do that. Yeah, do that. Yeah, you stay on the surface layer. Because what it actually said is people should do violence to you. That's the code. That's the esoteric meaning. Our enemies already do this every damn day, okay? When they say equity, they mean engineered outcomes, regardless of merit. They don't mean equality. When they say our democracy, they mean them being in control, telling you what to do. And they know this. They know this. When they talk about safety and harm, they're establishing a framework where they can control your speech and any speech they don't dislike because it will justify violent suppression of that speech. Okay? Right? This is why so many people in the conservative movement look so stupid to younger men on the right. Okay? Younger men know they're speaking in code, while conservatives are making arguments against the surface level, which isn't what they mean at all. Okay? That's the thing. It's one of the reasons why I gravitate towards young right-wing men. They're just more fluent in the way the world is than boomers, man. I can hardly stand being around boomers these days. That asymmetry, though, is going to kill us. And young right-wing men, which is this whole video series is dedicated to you, man. This is for you. I'm telling you, you got to bring back this knowledge of esoteric writing and use it, because you're in a rhetorical knife fight with these people. And there can be only one, my friend. Only one's going to be left standing. All right. Next time you see a boomer fact-checking claims that were just never meant by the left to be literal, right? Insult the boomer and move on and do what you need to do. Ignore these people. It's a huge problem. Okay. This is why I'm not even communicating to boomers anymore. I'm communicating to you guys, you young right-wing men, who I think are the future. So one of the core techniques that you can use, remember, this is also for my sons. And so these techniques I've gleaned from things I've already taught my sons before I lost control of them. You need to master these. And if you can do this, I think you can communicate under most conditions of oppression. First, the stuff we talked about in the last video. Create internal contradictions to signal that you're saying something different. State one thing in one place, the opposite somewhere else. Most readers will pick the version that fits their beliefs. They won't even notice you contradict yourself. The kill for readers, the people that care about what you're saying, are going to notice that, and they're going to know what you meant. Make your orthodox statements very prominent, okay? This is in rhetoric, this is called amplification. You want to amplify those statements and make them more prominent. Usually you want to put them at the beginning or the end, for example, of a shorter communication, and bury the esoteric truth in the middle. You might even just make it as an aside, a side comment, a qualification to something that's said, not something strong. So it just gets passed over, right? The contradiction and the amplification of orthodox statements, things that the censors will believe without skepticism, will just let this stuff slip right by. Secondly, use dispersal. Don't ever present something controversial in one place. Break it into pieces. Scatter them throughout. Okay? Each piece is harmless alone, but assembled, they're going to reveal what you really think. Right? It's kind of like distributing weapons parts, right? You put the barrel in chapter 3, the trigger in chapter 7, put the receiver in chapter 8, and then eventually somebody puts them all together and they can fire the gun and see what you really meant. Third, dissemble the target. Instead of talking about the things that would bother people, protected groups or whatever, criticize something safe. I'm going to give you a concrete example. Instead of talking about protected groups that I can't talk about, sometimes I'll just talk about the Aztecs or the Incas, right? Sometimes I'll criticize some Europeans, but people that know me know exactly what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying? Can't criticize the regime, write about a historical tyranny that's similar. Make sure that the events that you present from history mirror the events here, even if they're an error. The error itself, the historical error, will signal what you're really saying. The fourth technique is just strategically omit stuff. Sometimes the loudest statement is just silence. You conspicuously fail to mention something that should have obviously been there. So you write a treatise on virtue without mentioning God. The absence screams at the careful reader. But frankly, it's almost impossible to prosecute. That's what a lot of atheists used to do, right? Nowadays, it's the opposite, right? You want to write a treatise that talks about the importance of the sacramental vision, the Eucharist, and God. You can't do that, right? Frankly, if you wrote fiction, you wouldn't get that. So you do what C.S. Lewis did. You write science fiction novels that talk about it in a different way. And C.S. Lewis is a great example of using esoteric writing to talk about Christianity when at a time when you couldn't get published if you talked about Christianity. All right. How do you prove people actually meant this stuff, right? It's a fiction book. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Fifth technique is controlled placement, right? You begin and end at the beginning and the end, you get the most attention. The middle gets skimmed. So just use that fact. Hide stuff in the middle. We've talked about that. What kind of mistakes have gotten people caught in the past with this stuff? Well, there's 4 basic deadly errors, I would say, in trying to do this. They try to be too clever. They get code so complex that even allies can't crack it, and you've communicated nothing to nobody. Now you took a risk for no upside. Never do that, right? Insufficient cover. The surface teaching is just too obviously a front. They're like, nobody would say that. He's not the kind of guy that would say that. The surface has to be genuinely defensible, believable, has to be even interesting enough that people will engage with it on its own terms. C.S. Lewis is a very good writer to learn that from. Sometimes personal frustration can be a deadly sin here, right? You get angry watching people miss the point. You get less subtle and you start dropping obvious hints. I mean, this is how most esoteric writers actually get caught. They just get so frustrated. Keep your discipline, man. You can just write more stuff till you can write more and more essays until you get the one that hits the sweet spot and your guys get it and the other guys don't. The other is a modern one, digital carelessness. You write esoterically in published work, but then you go online and explain yourself openly in emails or on social media. It's stupid, man. Especially on social media, you should be communicating esoterically. How do you practice this? Again, like I said in the previous video, study the masters, read Plato, Machiavelli, Montaigne. And read them for philosophy, but also read them for their technique. Map out the contradictions and mistakes and map out the stories they tell and what they could mean. Track how they scatter arguments around and then reverse engineer how they did it. And that way you're practicing with low stakes, right? You write something esoteric about a topic and it doesn't matter much, and then you test it, right? See who catches the real message. Refine when the consequences are basically zero. Look, you already do a crude version of this already, right? You soften language in professional emails, right? You avoid certain topics at work. You present ideas differently when you're on social media than when you're having a beer with your buddies. The question is whether you're going to master this technique so that you can communicate to a wider audience and do it before you need it, before the censorship complex is fully locked down. Conditions are tightening. My sons are going to live under a surveillance infrastructure that's just truly unbelievable. It's something that goes beyond the wildest science fiction novels of the past. The cancel mechanisms that are coming into play are going to be intense with digital currencies and so forth. In 5 years, AI is going to curate almost everything that you see. News, entertainment, information, ideas. It's already happening. Just look around. You just don't notice sometimes because it just feels like it's your choice, but your feed isn't neutral. It's a product of what the system thinks will keep you engaged, not what will make you competent, dangerous, or free. You have exactly one way to push back: explicit instructions. You got to write them down. The way you write it down in the algorithm is you hit the subscribe and you hit the bell. You're telling the machine, I want this, instead of letting it guess. Now, most men will never do this. They'll drift through whatever the algorithm serves. They'll mistake the feed for reality. But you don't have to be most men. Take control of the input or let the machine take control of you. It's only 2 clicks. They can literally cut off your ability to buy food if you say the wrong thing. That's actually happening in China. So the cost of speaking openly about certain truths is already getting prohibitive. It's getting worse. And eventually it will result in the most totalitarian system the human race has ever known. So you need to start building these skills right now. And it's best to do it in writing first before you try to do it in speaking, right? And then once you actually need it, you're ready to go. Because I got to tell you, the people that can't do this and they try to learn this skill when it's too late, they're not going to be very good at it. They're going to get caught and they're going to be punished. And I think in the future, we could enter a realm where censorship is actually fatal. Cancel culture really will mean canceling you. So if you want truth to survive, you compromise with form while preserving substance. It's not lying. Say what keeps you alive on the surface while encoding what matters underneath. That's not dishonesty. That's precision targeting. Now, I want you to not get off YouTube. I almost always tell you to get off YouTube at the end of my videos. Don't get off YouTube. Go back and watch my earliest videos all the way up to this one again, and you will probably find some interesting things. Master this skill. Go do it. Do the work.
The Jeff Younger Show, signing off.